Zenitsu versus Kashimo, huh? This one's weird. What's up, guys? That guy with a reaction here. Fun fact, I do have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact, Zenitsu versus Kashimo is weird, very specifically because, like, where do you scale both of them? this is the question of the day. Where do you scale both of these characters, right? Right? Because if, and I do mean if, we give Kashimo anything above city level, Zenitsu's not damaging him, right? But realistically, even with Kashimo having half decent connections to the quote-unquote lightning timing of the JJK universe, thanks to literally him wielding lightning and fighting Akari, a guy who reacts. Look at my fingers. I need a little dancey dance. Look, to show you how much I have faith in Akari's lightning scaling. Reacts to lightning, and then Kashimo's able to directly combat him, and then we just put Zenitsu in the lightning timing tier because he does reaction things, even though he literally blitzes lightning, so realistically he should still be all blitz tier above Kashimo. If he can't do any damage to Kashimo, then that's the problem. However, if we upscale Zenitsu from Gyutaro and his town level attack, and we put Kashimo at, let's say, large town level, then Zenitsu bullies Kashimo, because he'd be a whole blitz tier above and actually be able to do damage to him and wear him down. Like, that's the thing. So if you give Zenitsu town level scaling and lightning plus speed, because he literally blitzes black lightning from Kaigaku and should, like, scale up from that, then he kind of just bullies Kashimo. However, if Kashimo goes NBA and then gets relatively, like, it should be realistically solid lightning timer scaling at that. Maybe not whole blitz tiers, but like possibly whole blitz tier above his previous self, then he should actually be relative to Zenitsu in terms of speed and should more than enough have the AP to damage him. And then Kashimo should beat the brakes off Zenitsu. Realistically, if we give, once again, we're being judged to lightning timing speed. And now this is going to get real bad. If we knock Kashimo down, we remove that lightning timing feat, we remove the Maki reacting to lightning feat in the manga, we remove the Toji reacting lightning feat in the anime, and we discount the idea that we don't know that the actual beam that Sukuna reacts to are EM waves, and whether or not you could just argue Sukuna aim dodged it, and then the beam that's light speed comes out after the fact. And when we put Kashimo at a Mach 3, he just gets bullied anyway. But I don't know. I've watched Broken Ronin. Oh, speaking of, before I get too far into this, as you can tell, I'm going to yap a whole lot. This video is only 19 minutes long. I promise you it's going to be longer than that because around that got the reaction. So the link to Broken Ronin channel will be in the description down below, along with a link to his channel. Fantastic any manga content creator. Covers Blue Lock, covers JJK, covers Sakamoto Days, covers Demon Slayer, covers more. I think he did a Percy Jackson video, which I want to react to. Like more. So the link will be in the description down below. But with that being the case, I've watched some of Broken Ronin's other videos. In fact, there are two other videos by Broken Ronin, the Muzan versus Sukuna video and the Muzan versus JJK as a whole video, that I still need to react to. They came out before this one, but I saw this one pop up literally like the day after I recorded my last Broken Ronin reaction video. I just want to react to it because I think it's going to be interesting. Knowing off those previous videos, and I highly doubt Ronin's scaling has changed all too much. I mean, once again, these are finished manga. Unless external data books come out or get translated, like, we're not really gonna get much new information on these two, or unless you start like using the anime, which will eventually come out for Kashimo. So maybe Kashimo's gonna get like indirect buffs from the anime, kind of like how Toji got a lightning feat from the anime. Like, there could be cases where the anime buffs up these two, especially with Zenitsu's final fight technically not being out yet, which would be against Muzan. Against Muzan is very vague, I know, but like against Muzan, and then obviously Kashimo fight. Kashimo just hasn't even been animated yet. Like, we don't have a whiff of animated Kashimo, so like, and we won't be getting that until presumably next year, because honestly, we're gonna probably get there, especially since it's all fighting. We're probably definitely gonna get at least through a good chunk of the calling games. Probably we may even end with Akari versus Kashimo. I feel like that would be, well, actually no, it really depends. If it's 24 anime episode season, then we're probably gonna end with the Megano reveal. But like, essentially, unless the anime comes out and we start adding more to the anime version of these characters, mangas are kind of set in stone. I don't think Ronin's scaling is going to change all too much. He typically puts JJK characters, including their strongest, at like large town level. Obviously, Kashimo is not the strongest in JJK. He's not Suguna level. He's not Gojo level. So like, presumably, and that was like NBA Kashimo, who's not on that level. We know NBA is much stronger than base Kashimo. Base Kashimo is like a heavy hitter tier character. Heavy hitter tier. I'm not even sure where he scales them, right? Like, I mean, well, actually no. He typically also puts Yuji at that large town level. Well, actually, no, that was Operators. I'm not sure. But essentially, I don't see him putting Kashimo in a tier above Zenitsu, where you just take chip damage from Zenitsu, because Zenitsu should realistically scale above Yutaro by EOS, especially with the Muzan damaging stuff. So like, it's probably wraps for Kashimo in that sense. Unless he goes NBA, which you can then argue like, okay, speed should be relative, AP should be relative. Kashimo just has more abilities and better bulk, right? Where you could probably tank Zenitsu's attacks. Usually though, I've noticed the pattern. Whatever the thumbnail is, it typically is like almost kind of the opposite, or at least like a mirror from what I understand of Broken Ronin's videos up to this point. And like Zenitsu looks very dominant in the thumbnail, so maybe Kashimo is actually gonna sneak out and eke out a dub here. So regardless, I'm excited to find out. So let's not waste any more time, ladies and gentlemen. You know my opinion. Off the top of my dome piece, just not going with Ronin scaling, go with my own. Personally, I'm stroking the beard. I'm thinking Jogo as a basis, realistically. Even like going with like his city level stuff instead of going with like the country level calc that exists from that databook statement. Kashimo should realistically upscale from Jogo, thanks to scaling to Akari, who should be relative to like Yuta, Kashimo, or Yuta, Itadori, and Maki. They should at least tickle the toes of some of the stronger tiers, if not directly scale to them, because they really shouldn't scale directly to the stronger tiers. So I'd put like Kashimo up there with like the city levels of Dura. No, because if you know, I have Suguna and Gojo much higher. Like at that, like even then, you could do some weird like mountain level stuff. Personally, I think Kashimo could like outbulk Zenitsu. I don't think he has the regen factor that a lot of other JJK characters have. That would make it really hard for Zenitsu to take him down. But I do think he should realistically be able to outbulk Zenitsu for a while. And I think the big issue Zenitsu runs into is that once he hits Kashimo enough, he's getting bolted himself, and Zenitsu's not immune to lightning. So like, notably, unironically, Kashimo's bolt actually beats Zenitsu for him, even though I can definitely agree that Zenitsu should have a good speed advantage. Not even going with like the super low tiered like JJK stuff, like locking him down all the way down to Mach 3, but like just putting him in the spear of the like lightning timing stuff based off of Kashimo himself. I think the bolt wouldn't be dodgeable for Zenitsu since it's literally going to be attached to the charges he's placed on his body. And if it breaks his sword, it's over. He's not going to beat Kashimo hand to hand. And if it breaks Zenitsu's bones or like tears his arm off or hits any part of Zenitsu that's remotely vital, whether it be like an arm, a leg, the chest, it's over. So ultimately, I think Kashimo wins, not even through like actually putting pause on Zenitsu. I think he gets pause put on him, but then the bolt, the auto react from the bolt actually takes out Zenitsu. That's my own scaling though. I can see Ronin going down that route too, just because of the way the thumbnail's structured and how long the video is. This is gonna be interesting though, because I think it's gonna be like the first time that I've covered Ronin doing like specific like. Well, I guess no, because the Upper Moons, they aren't like top tiers, but at least for like this is one of the main trio videos where like it's a major character from the main trio of a manga versus like a side character in another manga. So let's see. Let's not waste more time. Let's hop right into it.
Zenitsu Agamatsu and Hajime Kashimo, two characters wielding the power of thunder and lightning respectively, and two combatants representative of Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen alike. As I've been doing with the previous videos on the channel, I'll be throwing all of these characters' abilities against one another in order to determine who would win. Jujutsu Kaisen's God of Lightning, or the Demon Slayer who tamed thunder. As always, I'll be kicking this discussion off by going over both characters' strength, speed, and durability. And there's no better place to start than with Zenitsu showings in the Demon Slayer universe. Throughout the story, it's consistently shown that Zenitsu's speed is his bread and butter above all else. So, counter to how I usually present a character scaling, I'm actually going to start with that stat. From introduction, Zenitsu has been shown to very casually move faster than sound, creating thunderous sonic booms through his movement speed alone. Well, usually I wouldn't even bother mentioning a feat like this because it's so low relative to his peak scalability. I think it's important to note that Zenitsu's default should be compared to that of thunder, as the effects of total concentration breathing aren't real, or at least the visual ones aren't.
Yeah, that's true. So it's not like technically Zenitsu's not lightning speed because he like moves like lightning or has lightning effects around him. He does. That's the thing though with the Kaigaku stuff and like realistically, what is up with my beard? I just noticed that. Why are you up like this? Oh, I need a cut. Luckily, I'm getting a cut tomorrow. But yeah, Zenitsu's lightning, like the better lightning stuff comes later. I know why he's bringing up speed of sound though. I know he's bringing up the sonic booms and the mock stuff because that's very important. The JJK. JJK. I wish you were faster. Oh, JJK, I wish you were consistently faster. I know we have the lightning stuff here and like the 1 EM wave thing. I need more. JJK, if only you were faster, dog. I could do so much more with you. It's the fact that you're so slow, JJK. It's the fact that you're so slow. What's it?
We can't use how Zenitsu is depicted visually to be the end-all be-all of placing him within those lightning timer tiers, and due to his limited pool of feats, you might find it hard to place him there at all. He does fight really well against Daki in the Red Light District arc.
I think notably though, luckily enough, if he didn't have that Kaigaku fight, he did, but notably it's the Kaigaku and the Muzan stuff that really saves him, right? And Ronin's right, like he literally just has the 5 fights. In fact, does he even? No. Yeah. See, he brings it up here. But like notably, it's even hard to give him too much credit for the Muzan fight. The main thing you give him credit for the Muzan fight wise is AP. That's the main thing. You like upscale his AP from the Muzan fight, but you upscale speed from the Kaigaku fight. That's it. But hypothetically, if you didn't, like notably, I know there's heavy contention around Demon Slayer even having lightning speed scaling. In fact, I know someone literally said they were gonna make a video. Igneel said he was gonna make a video talking about like the Demon Slayer overhype in terms of that, and I'm assuming it's gonna go into the idea of like the lightning that the demons are using is an actual cloud to ground lightning, and this shouldn't count. But personally, I don't care. It's like no, I've always been like, if it's lightning and it operates like lightning, it's a lightning speed. If it's or like electricity speed, and if it's light and it operates like light, or it doesn't even have to operate. If it's light, it moves at light speed. That's kind of how I've always been. It's notably that's like the seminally sin scale in me being sick and tired of people being like, well, arc isn't actually light speed. It's just described as light particles, is called light numerous times, and just is light. But it's not light speed though. Ray of Judgment isn't light speed just because it's a beam of light. What do you mean? That's a seminally sin scaling trauma knocking at the back of my dome there. But notably for Zenitsu, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. More than cool giving Zenitsu lightning timing off this feat in particular. But establishing a speed of sound low is fine. But I think with the consistency of it, and you also have like the Gyutaro and Daki, like the Daki explosion feat that's multiple times faster than sound, and Mitsuri upscale thanks to the moves I fight. Like there's so much stuff where I'm like, you can give Zenitsu lightning speed. The main question will be his AP, which I think if he didn't have, because nobody doesn't actually ever fight Gyutaro, so you could argue he doesn't scale to Gyutaro's talent level attack. So like you could go down that route, but he does damage Muzan. And like no matter how weak Muzan became, he's not weaker than Gyutaro or Kaigaku. So like that, luckily enough, this like literally it is these two fights right here. This fight kind of irrelevant. Well, actually not really irrelevant because the Upper Moon 6 kind of stuff, but like still really mostly relevant. This fight mostly irrelevant. It's these two fights that gives Zenitsu any fighting chance at all against other verses. Literally just because he has the AP to damage Muzan and he has the speed to keep it with lightning. You remove these two fights, you gotta, I'm not saying these buns, but like these buns. We'll see.
There at all. He does fight really well against Daki in the Red Light District arc, pretty consistently avoiding her attacks while using his normal breathing style, and is even able to blitz her when entering God Speed mode, which should place him well over 200 times faster than sound at his peak during this time in the story. We're able to determine this figure, by the way, because Daki's able to react to and place herself in between Gyutaro and an already detonating set of explosives, which, when calculated, comes out to that aforementioned Mach 200 figure. Typically, it's at this point in the video where I'd say that this is just a low-end feat for Zenitsu, and he obviously scales to Kanroji, or Uzui, or whoever else that should be relative to this tier of character, but you honestly can't say that with a whole lot of certainty, even by the manga's conclusion.
Really? So this is ooh, look at my hand, look at me rub my fingers together. Look at me wiggle. Okay. Hold on, wait a second. It was literally pull day today though, so like that doesn't count. But like, look at the arm definition. I'm kind of. But interesting. Let me guess his argument before he makes it. I guess he's gonna say the Mulan stuff isn't valid, and he's gonna like the other argument is like notably Kaigaku is specifically set as upper 6, right? And if you don't give, here's the thing, you have to do two things. You have to say Kaigaku's lightning isn't actually lightning because it's like black and has different properties, stuff like that. And like it's different, right? It's just a blood demon art that resembles lightning, isn't actually lightning. So if you cancel that out, then you knock his speed down. And then he obviously, since he fought upper 6, he didn't fight upper 4, upper 5, upper 3, any of that. He didn't scale to that. And if you knock Muzan fight as irrelevant because he was like camouflage at the time and Muzan was getting ganked by actual worthy fighters, just because he's able to damage Muzan doesn't mean Muzan's defense was at like top tier at that point. So like you could make arguments that he's not at that level, but with the Muzan fight and the Kaigaku lightning stuff, I think it's safe enough to put him above like characters like Tengen. But this is interesting. I'm not, like Zenitsu downscale. Not what I was expecting. Let's see. He's probably gonna knock off the Muzan fight. He's probably gonna knock off the Kaigaku fight because lightning isn't actually lightning. Let's see.
Like with many of the other Demon Slayer characters mentioned, Zenitsu doesn't have the definitive scaling necessary to place him in the same upper tiers in the same way that the Elite Hashira, Upper Moons, and Tanjiro do. And this fact greatly affects how high we can scale him. His only major fight after the Red Light District comes in the way of the showdown with Kaigaku, Upper Moon 6, and a demon that is only there because he rose through the unfilled ranks of prior demons dying, at least if Zenitsu is to be believed here. This not only means that the use of linear Upper Moon chain scaling is pretty useless, but we also can't even compare him directly to Uzui, who struggled to fight against another Upper Moon of this rank, because it's implied he doesn't possess the strength to get here naturally. Zenitsu is able to defeat...
Now this I somewhat, notably though, I see what he means, though I somewhat disagree. The only reason I disagree is that Muzan didn't make him like upper 5. And like notably there wasn't a replace, how do I put this in a way that makes sense? There wasn't Nakime was actually made upper 4, I do believe. I think Nakime was made upper 4. But notably there wasn't an upper 5 replacement. And I'm not even sure if Nakime was made upper 4, but I think she was made upper 4. But essentially, that shows that Muzan didn't like just randomly throw random demons to replace the new upper moons. Like he specifically like picked on presumably Kokushima's recommendation. He picked Kaigaku out and said, "Okay, now you're 6." So you could argue Kaigaku should at least be relative to the previous upper 6, Gyutaro and Daki. And notably, unlike Tengen, Zenitsu does solo stomp Kaigaku, while presumably even holding back and like mentally nerfed in that fight. Meanwhile, Tengen has no reason to be mentally nerfed, and he does like struggle heavily. In fact, would have lost to Gyutaro and Daki if he was fighting alone. But of course, they have the gimmick. It's like I see what he's doing here. But then I do wonder how he's probably just gonna say the white hair moves and stuff doesn't count, right? Because realistically, the white hair moves on stuff, it's not the real version of the GFPC. And if you don't know what the GFPC is, don't worry. GFPC. Yeah. If you don't know what the GFPC is, don't worry. It's a concept I talk about all the time, but I don't always explain it. So let me explain it this time. The GFPC stands for the Great Final Power Creep. It's when everyone in the verse randomly at the end of a series becomes super duper strong. It isn't a true GFPC because it isn't like massively above where the verse stood before. But characters like Kanao, characters like Zenitsu, Inosuke, all them, they all just randomly are able to damage white-haired Muzan, who right at the start of his appearance is stated to be beyond any demon that anyone has encountered, which would include all the upper moons. Right? Like, and I don't even think that's like a character statement, that's like a narrator statement, like, this is the strongest demon any Hashira has ever encountered before. So like white-haired Muzan is still that. So being able to damage white-haired Muzan means you should be able to damage any other upper moon, right? That's why EOS, Demon Slayer scaling, is so funky. It's why Iguro gets like knocked up to the moon and high. It's why DKT, even though I think DKT just shouldn't be this way, unlike a white-haired Muzan, because of the context around DKT, a lot of people have Kyu as the strongest Hashira because there's those two things against DKT. Oh wow, he was stated to be the strongest. He's stated to become the strongest eventually, not immediately. He was freshly transformed. He's not actually the strongest. Stop it. But with that being the case for that, the reason I call it a GFPC soft is because reaching Muzan level doesn't like upscale. Like Muzan wasn't confirmed to be planetary or something like that. That's not what happened. Usually a real GFPC is something that happens in like JJK, where the verse is like city level, arguably country level with the Jogo stuff, but then we get characters like Yuki who make black holes, characters like Yorozu with infinite spear, and like you have the statement on the back of the volume about Sugano being able to destroy the planet, Sekai planet, whatever. So like there is like the GFPC is in, whoa, that's crazy high stuff. Ooh. But like, and even then, I'd say that's if in the levels of GFPC soft, the Great Final Power Creep soft, middle, and then super GFPC, there's Demon Slayer at the end, just because a bunch of characters get upscaling through White-Hair Muzan and arguably DKT, even though I don't think DKT counts. Then there's like the middle tier, which is JJK, where there's just a bunch of characters who have super high level feats, even though like the rest of the verse doesn't really scale to them. And even if you argue, that's still like not necessarily too big. And then there's series like 7 Deadly Sins. I don't want to spoil Magi, even though it's never going to get animated, but like, Magi's the worst. I love Magi, and like, notably, I say it's the worst as in like, the GFPC is the worst. But like, the reason I bring up 7 Deadly Sins, the verse, for the longest time, was like, country. Kinda being generous. Then we got introduced to the Archangels, who made it even more ambiguous, but then it got to like, multi-continental. Planetary on a high end, depending on how you scale the domain of God and characters who scale that. We can work with that. Then we got introduced to the gods and everybody fought them. Then the Demon King appeared, and he created an entire realm with stars in it. Oh, well, there we go. Then the Supreme Deity got introduced and beat the brakes off of, oh, well, another being created a realm with stars in it. And then Chaos got, like, a high Uni feat, just like the last chapter of Fortnite at the time of recording. Not even high Uni, Uni Plus. They created an entire infinite time space. Like, just hardline convert. That was them. GeoPC to the moon and back, in that case. Because it went from, like, okay, planetary, if you squint the right way, to, oh, we're actually Uni. Plot twist, we're actually Uni the entire time. Or not the entire, well, kind of the entire time. Chaos existed at the start of that universe. So, like, whoops. So, Demon Slayer, I can see Ronin not saying he scales the white hair Muzan. And then that knocks Zenitsu down a whole bunch. And if you really don't even think he scales the Uzui, which I do think is kind of funky, but if we don't go with that, then yeah, he doesn't have any of the scaling to like the super duper high speeds. But let's see. I'm only 3 minutes in.
Kaigaku in the end, bringing out his very own thunder-breathing style to do so, but it's quite obvious that these two fighters are near equals, and Zenitsu shouldn't be able to handily face off against anyone above this level. This is even further substantiated when we learn that Kaigaku still hadn't mastered the use of his own techniques in demon arts.
Now, notably, I think the only issue in major quotation marks I have with this statement, don't get me wrong, I do believe that what is his name? Yushiro. I think Yushiro does have a point here that obviously Kaigaku was green as all get out. He might as well have been grass. His thing is lightning, right? Like notably, but this statement is what's unironically used, and I say unironically in a normal sense, but like unironically used to knock down Kaigaku's own lightning stuff, which will by proxy make the entire verse slower. Or no, it knocks down Kaigaku's stuff, and then it points out the idea that demon arts can get stronger and faster. Remember, Kaigaku's whole demon art was just lightning breathing and like applications of lightning. So if you remove that, you pull that out, then that implies that, okay, if his demon arts can get stronger, that means his lightning could hypothetically get stronger and faster. So Hakuten's lightning, which is used to upscale the rest of the verse, doesn't count either, because that's just demon ability. It's not actually lightning. And then that chops the ankles of the entire verse, right? That's why, and notably, whenever I see demon player, my favorite any manga, Demon Player. But whenever I see Demon Slayer downscale, that's typically the argument used, right? You use this statement from Yushiro, you explain that Kaigaku's lightning isn't real lightning, meaning it could get stronger and faster. So that means all demon lightning isn't actually real cloud to ground lightning. And even though Hakuten's cloud to ground lightning looks like cloud to ground lightning, doesn't mean it actually is, since it's just demon art. We know that is a demon art as well. So by proxy, that downscale or that lightning isn't real, meaning Mitsuri doesn't actually scale lightning speed, and then there's no lightning speed in the rest of the verse. Realize literally all of Demon Slayer's like lightning timer scaling comes from those two feats. If you look elsewhere, the verse is like supersonic. Not supersonic. It is still massively hypersonic with that like one Tengen feat or that one Daki feat. But it's nowhere near as fast as it's commonly agreed to be, mostly because most people have accepted lightning is just lightning, right? Electricity moves at electricity speeds. So like it's a dangerous rabbit hole to go down, because then what that would do, that would invert or like ruin a lot of the previous videos Ronin's done. But notably, he's removing Kaigaku. He's not removing Mitsuri. He's not removing Zohakuten. So like, it is fine. He's doing like half the downscale, right? He's doing the downscale specifically for Zenitsu. But then again, we have the white hair Muzan stuff. So let's see how that goes.
Over a fledgling upper six. You may argue that the narrative and in-universe purpose behind the Hashira training was to get the cast at a level that could consistently contend with Upper Moons and Hashira alike. Therefore, Zenitsu should at least scrape the floor of this tier. And while I agree with the notion, it's obvious that some got a greater boost than others from this training. Despite going through the same training as Tanjiro, he doesn't get a Slayer mark, access to the see-through world, Red Blade, or feats that even vaguely imply he could throw down with the legs of Upper 3 to the same extent that
okay. Notably, this is fine though. This is because I'm always hesitant to do the white hair Muzan stuff, but like, it's the idea of just because I don't like it, does that mean I can ignore it? And like, notably, I always try to be consistent whenever I do stuff, right? So like, when I say everyone in Seven Deadly Sin scales to the Great Final Power Creep, including Diane, I pull up the feats of Diane actually doing something to the Supreme Deity. And she doesn't actually do any damage to the Prime Demon King, though, which is really, she's always funny, right? Like, it's always funny, but like, she doesn't ever do damage to the Prime Demon King. She just moves him and makes him grunt. She doesn't actually do damage to him. But like, look at her damaging the Supreme Deity at all. even if it is a 50% Supreme Deity, damaging Supreme Deity at all, portion of star level or solar system level is still, like, at bare minimum star level or solar system level. If you can tickle the toes, buddy, who can do that? You can tickle the toes. So, like, there's that. And then, slight spoilers for Magi. And I won't give any context. Please read Magi if you haven't read Peak. But in Magi, they do literally fight gods. Like, and I'm not talking gods in the same way that the Seven Late Sins gods are gods. I'm talking like multiversal, creating entire separate, like, breaking timeline, time-space gods. And then they fight a god stronger than that one, and they fight a god stronger than that one. And then those two just keep flipping positions. And then there are gods higher than that. Like, there's levels to that Magi stuff, but I say characters do scale because we actually see them damage and block attacks from that, like, arguable 6-dimensional deity. So that scales. But for something like White Hair Muzan, he's right? It's the whole idea why I don't really like the idea that all the Demon Slayers are even viable against White Hair Muzan, even while they're ganking him. Because realistically, they shouldn't even be able to damage White Hair Muzan, because none of them should scale to even Akaza. I'm not talking like all of them, but like a character like Kanao. Well, no, Kanao and Doma, and Inosuke technically do thanks to fighting Doma, who's stronger than Akaza. But like, it is kind of funky. I see exactly what he's going down. I've seen this done before. But for my people who are super hard at Demon Slayer scaling, they're like, it happened, bro. You may not like it, but it is kind of confirmed that Demon Slayers get massively stronger through experience. And I guess their experience boost was just that much. It doesn't make sense, but then look at some Zenkais in Dragon Ball, right? Like, there's some Zenkais that'll give you like a 1.2 times power boost, and there's some Zenkais that give you like, what? Doesn't Goku go from like 90 to 3 million off one Zenkai? So like, narrative is narrative, right? Sometimes massive boosts just happen. But I'm assuming for this one, if we're going with the idea that Zenitsu doesn't even scale to Tengen, which I do think is kind of funky, but still, I can understand the logic behind it, then yeah, he may just get bullied by Kashimo. Because if he doesn't have any lightning stuff, but we give Kashimo even a whiff of it, a whiff? Like a little, like wiggle our fingers under his nose whiff, and we give like the Maki catching a bullet feat, which also should like put it in the same, it may be over. It may be over. Bullet tape.
Tanjiro was capable of. And if that weren't enough, the difference in power and combat...
Weird point of glaze, but I'm gonna glaze anyway. Broken Ronin has a really cool voice. It has like, he has like, notably like Roman's voice is more like my like more like whenever I drop into this register, which is weird. Like notably because I record so much, I don't even know like what my real voice is anymore. Obviously it's just like longer terms of it. I think this is my normal voice. But even then, like I can feel it being slightly higher in my register. Meanwhile, this is like how I usually sound, which is like lower and like slightly more. But Ronan has like this nice gravel to his voice. Crazy glaze, I know, but I heard it and I was thinking of it. And it's like, it's distinct enough from like my own voice and my own register where I say he's like at least like a solid pitch and a half down from even my lower register speaking tone. He's not like this deep where I'm going like into the back of my throat to speak, but he has it's good, it's natural, it has a nice good gravel, it's really good to listen to. Fantastic voice for content creation. What's it?
Between Hashira can be a significant gap, as illustrated with the likes of Kanroji and Gyome and their relative performances in Infinity Castle and the Muzan battle. So, no matter how you slice it, Zenitsu's greatest calculable and scalable feats come in the way of his fight with Daki. But what about the Muzan fight, right?
Okay, let's see.
Zenitsu accrued some good scaling here. Well, to be completely honest with you, not really when you put everything in.
Speed-wise, I can kind of see it. But AP-wise, let's see how he argues the AP, because I'm pretty sure Zenitsu does damage Muzan, right? I don't think he ever bounces off. Let's see.
Zenitsu and Inosuke joined the battle against Muzan quite late into the climactic showdown, and do so much fresher than any of their allies, meaning the few slashes and slices that Zenitsu does get in here or there don't necessarily mean he's equal to anyone else on the battlefield. Muzan throughout the night is continuously weakening. It takes Zenitsu's strongest move to even land attacks with some level of oomph behind them, and he's consistently fighting alongside others who can pull aggro when needed. So you can't really determine that he scales to this weakened Muzan. You can't determine that he scales to the others on the battlefield, and as such, it's just kind of a vague feat that doesn't really mean much for the end-all be-all. Because of this, Mach 200 plus is about the limit of Zenitsu's speed scaling. This limited pool of feats he has also pretty severely affects his ceiling in the...
Okay, so, okay. Now this, Kashimo should whoop him. Because if we're living... No, this is... Oh, this is gonna be crazy. Oh, it's gonna be crazy. Ooh, my hair is thin. Wait a second. Oh, I'm going bald already. I swear I ain't that old, but I just saw that. Lord help me. Lord help me. I gotta let this hair grow out a bit. Jeez, look at the top. You can actually see my scalp. I never knew that. Jeez, look, it looks fine from the side. In fact, honestly, I think it's from the front that my beard looks weird. And I think it's just because of how that looks. Like you can really see like the fuzz coming in, and like you see the fuzz on the side. I feel like my beard should be higher, but like looking at it from a side profile, my beard actually looks like perfect height. But I think it's also because like I don't actually have a jawline. Like the beard forms the jawline. Like you can see that by like this fat right here. Well, hold on. Why does the beard look like yeah? But it's just the top of the dome. I didn't notice. Well, actually, that could be the lighting. Is that the lighting? No, because like I see the brown, bro. I think my hair is just that thin. But with it being the case, this is horrific because what I'm assuming is going to come next, if he is discounting, like notably the one thing you could be like, well, even if you want to discount a speed scaling from White Hair Muzan, because like he does mention, Muzan fighting multiple people, drawing aggro, actual relevant threats are there, and this is kind of just like abusing that fact, even though he's able to slash him. He's able to slash him, right? If his AP wasn't high enough to damage Muzan, then he shouldn't be able to. And even like a super weak white-haired Muzan should scale above all Libra moves, yada yada bing bada boom. But if we're going with the idea that it doesn't really matter, and Muzan's defenses are like super duper compromised because he comes in the battle so late and Zenitsu's relatively fresh, right? All that. We're limiting him to Taki, he wouldn't even scale to Yutaro's talent level feat. He'd be like a building level character. So, because remember, he doesn't even when he's in like Godspeed, he can't like immediately decapitate Daki. He needs to like drag it out in midair, and he needs to come in with the serrated blades and like cut prop. So like, if we're limiting him to like barely the worst half of Upper Moon 6 level, then Kashimo does. It is the same thing where you could argue if Kashimo's like Mach 3 and Zenitsu's 210, like Zenitsu would still run circles around Kashimo, but if you give Kashimo any speed scaling, that's not the case. He bullies Zenitsu. And then if you give Kashimo even, like if we lowball him to town level and we say Zenitsu doesn't scale, the scenario I mentioned way back at the start of the video comes in again, where they interact, Zenitsu's blitzing him, and then suddenly his sword breaks, or he loses a hand, or he loses a body part, because the charges were placed. I think a lot of people do forget, the reason Kashimo's so dangerous, like even defensively, is that simply interacting with him puts the charges on you, right? He himself doesn't have to hit you. His whole curse energy body, his field, the CE he releases, places the charges from interaction. It's why we literally see him get bolted so quickly after Hikari literally runs in and punches him in the mouth, because each thing puts a charge on you. So, like, Zenitsu's gonna get bolt dipped because he can't do enough damage, even if he is faster. But even then, you could argue Kashimo has any sort of speed scaling, and then he bullies the taste out of Zenitsu. So, like I said, I could almost tell, right? Because in the thumbnail, he had Zenitsu like putting his blade at the Kashimo as if Kashimo was scared, and usually it's backwards, right? I think notably the only way I don't know that for certain, he has Yuji versus Tanjiro, and personally, I think he's gonna say Tanjiro wins that because of the speed advantage and the ability to tickle it Yuji through AP. And with that being the case, and also like Tanjiro's superior stamina, arguably, with that being the case, it may be reps because Tanjiro's also looking scared in that thumbnail, and Yuji's looking real aggressive. But every time that's been the case, it's almost been opposite, where like the character who looks all aggressive ends up losing. So let's see.
Limited pool of feats he has also pretty severely affects his ceiling in the strength department. Normally, I just use Gyutoro's destruction of the red light district to justify town level scaling for his attack potency, but Zenitsu has shown nothing to prove he's on this level. Sure, he fights well against Daki, but she's shown time and time again to be the weaker of the siblings, and even in that case, he's not able to slice through her neck alone. He requires the divine help of Zenitsu to accomplish this task, and it's not like he ever fights someone explicitly stronger or higher ranked than Gyutaro, so you can't even use indirect lines of scaling to place him there. So
it would just have to be White Hair Muzan, but for discounting that, he's right. You can't. There's nothing else. Zenitsu doesn't fight enough people. Let's see.
Some of the other hallmark feats like Rengoku in Akaza's Clash or Doma's ice statue creation would also normally be applicable to any character discussed in a video like this, but once again, Zenitsu has no real frame of reference to get there. He never fights Akaza or Doma directly, nor does he pull off a showing of strength so impressive that it's obvious he's fighting in the same realm as them.
It's the White Hair Muzan stuff, right? I mean, I guess you can make an argument. Well, he should be relative to Tanjiro and Inosuke, right? The counter argument to that is no. There are many times where the trio, even the main trio in anime, don't scale to each other at all. Look at, notably, I can't even say Naruto because Sakura gets a bunch of data book statements and like weird feats that does put her on the level of Naruto and Sasuke somehow. The dreams and of absolution. But even then, Naruto and Sasuke is a good example, where Final Valley Naruto is clearly stronger than Final Valley Sasuke. Like, clearly stronger. and would win. But then they're later stated as equals. And of course, there's just all of Shippuden where Sasuke is stronger for a good chunk of it. Then there's Naruto stronger. Then it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Sakura's well behind both of them for a while. So like, just because characters are in a trio doesn't mean they all necessarily scale to each other. A similar case of this is Meliodas, Bond, and Escanor as a hypothetical trio in similar sense. Or if you don't want to include Escanor, Meliodas, Bond, and King, like a current case trio for 4 knights. They are also implied to be on completely different levels despite being in a quote unquote trio. But that's a vague trio, right? Let's go with another major trio. Let's go with Ichigo. I guess, like, who is Ichigo's trio? I guess that's not even a question. But if we go with, like, female lead deuteragonist main character, we'll go with Ryu, Ichigo, and Orihime. Clearly in completely different tiers. So, ultimately, you can't just use the idea that, but they're in a trio, though, but they're relative, though, to actually say the characters are relative, unless you do that relative stuff with White-Haired Muzan, because of the beings that they fight. And we know the upper moon scaling is linear. 5 is stronger than 6, 4 is stronger than 5, 3 is stronger than 4, so on and so on and so on. So yeah, once again, once you remove that White-Haired Muzan stuff, and especially if you remove the Kaigaku lighting, because notably, the one thing I'll admit, like I mentioned, he does half the downscale. He doesn't even mention the lightning stuff that Kaigaku does. So I'm guessing Ronin doesn't even think that counts as lightning, which once again would lead into the whole, like, the full downscale, which like, well then, is Hontango even lightning? But like, I see what he did there. But if you don't bring up the Kaigaku stuff that Zenitsu reacts to, that because there is in fact, I think there's even like a calc out there of Zenitsu like blitzing Kaigaku's lightning that puts him in those massively hypersonic plus tiers. But he doesn't even bring that up. He brought up another speed calc that was I recognized from Versus Wiki, but he didn't bring up that calc. So like, yeah, it should be wraps. It should be wraps. Let's see. It really depends on where he scales Kashimo though, because once again, like I mentioned all the way at the start of this video, technically Kashimo's one of those characters who doesn't get like. He doesn't get like the super crazy like top tier EOS, but then again, he's relative to the heavy hitters. That's the thing. He's there. Obviously, no one actually scales to the god tiers. So technically, Kashimo actually is in a much better spot narratively and scaling wise than Zenitsu, thanks to his battle with Akari. So like, there's that. Let's see.
And once again, defaulting to Muzan feats doesn't really work. When Muzan is getting consistently weaker, Zenitsu is bringing out his strongest attacks, and he still isn't able to leave much of an impact. I mean, at the bare minimum, he's allowed
to be fair though, he's able to breach Muzan's durability. That is the one thing. He's able to breach Muzan's durability. It won't when he says only a bright red blade can do enough damage, he means like permanent lasting damage. Being able to pierce somebody of Muzan's level should still be technically a feat, right? Like, say for example, you were fighting me, right? And you were able to harm me, but I regened it off instantaneously. Say I have like Wolverine level regen. You were still able to damage me. There could be some people who would hit me and it wouldn't do anything. Like I was explaining, like one of my younger cousins like found the channel and they're like, "Cousin Pencil, you do power scaling stuff? I don't get it. Explain it to me." And I was like, "Hit me as hard as you can." He hit me right in the arm. It didn't do anything. And I was like, "If your father were to do that to me, I would be on the ground in agony. You don't scale to me. Your dad scales above me." So like that's the idea of explaining it there. Technically, even though that didn't do it, since I didn't do anything, he wouldn't scale at all. But just because I'd be able to get up after his dad punched me in the arm, or I probably, well, to be fair, do I actually? No. His dad definitely scales above me. Like, if I were to get up after his dad hit me, but I wasn't like bleeding massively because my durability wasn't super compromised, technically he still would scale to me and I scale to him because we'd be able to harm each other. That's the whole idea. Being able to harm somebody means you're able to breach the durability. And we know in Demon Slayer it is still a universe where you can be so tough that like you can like weapons can bounce off and not do anything. So the Zenitsu be able to do some damage should technically count for his AP. Once again, I'm fine with ignoring it. Anything to give Kashimo a dub, am I right? Anything for agenda. Let's see.
Stronger than unnamed or irrelevant demons that have like building level scaling, so that's something, right? Okay, I'm kind of hoeing him with a little
okay
and some pity in your heart. I'm not gonna lie, you can't do much with this guy. Maybe you could put him at city block level if you think that Rengoku by the story's end just kind of gets power cliffed out of relevance. Rengoku being able to clash with Akaza with an attack that's placed in the city block ranges, but even this is a bit dubious.
That's like, once again, because of the Upper Moon 3 stuff, it's not really like you still can't technically. Once again, once you remove white hair, it becomes a mess because you can't really scale this because it's Upper Moon 3 and he struggles with Upper Moon 6, right? And we know the moon scaling is linear. And that's 3 whole ranks of difference. So let's see.
And vague in how you make the connection. Zenitsu pretty arguably can be said to be in the city block ranges. Maybe, I guess just off the general level of power shown in the later stages of Demon Slayer. But this isn't a particularly ironclad stance, nor is it a great comparison to his fellow Slayers. And the thing is, his durability scaling is even more in the toilet than his attack potency.
Yeah. Even like, I don't think like, he gets hit by white hair moves on and lives, but like his durability is immediately compromised. Let's say.
Fortunately for him, most Demon Slayer characters don't have equal parts durability and strength, at least if you're a human, as shown with Tanjiro on numerous occasions, Rengoku in his fight with Akaza, and pretty much every other demon versus human battle in the series. While they can block attacks and slash with extreme amounts of force, their unguarded physical bodies can't seem to handle the same toll. So Zenitsu...
Yeah, I mean, technically they live, though. They do live, though. So, like, they do scale, they just don't have regen. And they don't have, like, the super durability, I suppose.
Resilience would just be vaguely below his attack potency. As for notable abilities and techniques with Zenitsu, you get what you see on the box. All of his breathing style's focus is directed towards speedy attacks and quick draw techniques. With his Godspeed and Honoi Kazuchi no Kami, he's able to blitz characters that under normal circumstances would be relative to him, and while his original Thunder Breathing form isn't explicitly said to have a usage limit, Zenitsu notes that he can't...
Okay, here's the thing. I'm trying to think now. Now that Ronin has laid out his scaling for Zenitsu, and obviously Zenitsu doesn't have like hacks or powers or anything like that, this may be horrific. He may literally say Zenitsu can't damage Kashimo. Because that would be a thing, right? If we're putting Zenitsu at city block, you could lowball Kashimo to town. And I do mean lowball. Town, and he wouldn't take any damage from Zenitsu. And then he'd get bolted automatically. That's crazy. So we really putting Zenitsu in the... I'm gonna peek into the depths of the comment section of this video. Because, like, I don't think we're gonna be so bad that Zenitsu's so low. But that's the thing. Kashimo has decent enough Dura. Man, it's actually rough. Let's see. It would literally be Panda versus Kashimo all over again, except Zenitsu may have a slight speed advantage if you really lowball Kashimo. Let's see.
Himself to use Godspeed more than 3 times in battle, and I imagine the 7th form of Thunder Breathing being quite similar. A straightforward speedster if I've ever seen one, and soon we'll see if that speed will be enough to defeat the god of lightning. Kashimo can be somewhat of a controversial figure.
He, next to Akari, is... undeniably, notably I say Akari's worse though. Akari's worse. But he next to Akari is undeniably the most controversial character to scale in all JJK. I mean, like, you could argue the Heavenly Restriction users are up there, mainly because, like, people have the Heavenly Restriction users everywhere. I call them users, but essentially the perfect Heavenly Restriction, aka, like, post Shinjuku Maki and Toji, they're everywhere. Like, you have people like me who have them really, really high, like, top 5 high, and then there are people who have them, like, not even top 10. Like, they're like, the ones that bounce everywhere, but at least people, like, colloquially agree the HRs are strong. Kashimo is either number 3 or not top 15. There's no in between. I've seen lists that sometimes put Kashimo at 8, but they're like one off list by a guy who I don't know any of his other opinions. I like Kashimo. He's flip flop the character. Where do I have him in the general scheme of the verse? Well, thanks to narrative, I could arguably see narrative and just like upscale. Like, you could argue if NBA like is like a 5 times multiplier because you go just as the start of the series, your curse technique is like 80% of your potential, meaning Kashimo is only operating at 20%, then he gets like a 5 times multiplier through NBA. Then he realistically should be more than fast enough to like blitz and one shot a lot of characters. If not blitz and one shot, blitz and bully them. But unfortunately, his skilling to Sukuna brings that into question a whole lot, right? Because of other characters' interaction with Sukuna. But then again, like, I can see the arguments for NBA being top 3. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I could kind of see it. Especially with Hollow Worker Basket. Hollow Worker Baskets holds the sign and then kicks people to death with lightning bolts. Like it actually is that bad. I'm not kidding. So, like, I can somewhat see the arguments. Generally, though, I have Kashimo in top 10. Generally, I have Kashimo in top 10. But he has weird matchups. Like, Incarnated Kashimo loses to, like, Angel, for example, because of the light. But, like, It is funky. Like, Kashimo is like a weird character, but notably he's weird in the fun way. I don't like Hikari because he's weird in the annoying way. But it's funny because Hikari is very integral to Kashimo's scaling. In fact, the whole lightning speed stuff for Kashimo comes through Hikari because of Hikari's reaction to Kashimo's lightning. So, like, I don't know. Kashimo's funny. Let's see.
In the Jujutsu Kaisen community because of his interesting exit from the series, but don't let his reputation fool you. He's definitely one of the higher tiered characters in the greater context of Jujutsu.
I'd even say he's definitely a top tier. Like, notably, I've mentioned this in previous videos. I break JJK down into a couple tiers: God tier, top tier, high tier, mid tier, low tier, fodder. So, like, I put Kashimo in the top tier. Like, notably, he's only surpassed, in my opinion, especially, like, even base Kashimo in top tier, he's only surpassed by characters like Yuta, like Maki, like Toji, arguably Yuji. And then NBA, that, like, takes him from arguably, like, the bottom of top tier all the way up to, like, the top of top tier, like, bordering God tier, just because of, like, what the hypothetical upscale is there. If you think he's not that much faster, that much stronger, then he's, like, stays exactly the same where he is. But he can actually go pretty darn high. But let's see.
Especially when talking on the basis of physical abilities.
Yeah.
In terms of Kashimo's strength.
So it's gonna be a bulk versus speed thing where bulk actually matters and wins because the AP is too low. That's gonna be the answer to this video. But let's see.
Durability, placing him in the town levels of power is relatively simple.
There we go. All right. I wonder if he's gonna bring up the Jogo thing. He should. Kashimo should scale the Jogo. We'll see.
Of his two major fights, the one that takes place with Akari is most important for this idea, with Ishigori being the origin point of this calculation and line of scaling.
My son! My baby boy! Interesting, though. They should not scale to Ishigori. Let's see. Because notably, Ishigori has the highest output, meaning neither of these two scale to Ishigori's output. Let's see, though.
Ishigori's Granite Blasts have town-level scaling based on the destruction caused in Sendai. Yuta tanks those attacks on numerous occasions, or at least survives them with a high level of physical cohesion after the fact. Akari and Yuta are implied to be within the same tier of strength to one another.
I see ish the vision. And in the same tier, right? Notably, I always think actually, it's debatable if you'd have just ate that large wide scale Granite Blast actually is town level, and the more concentrated ones actually do damage to him, then the actually opening one is the weakest. I thought you'd have just dodged it. I always thought you'd just avoid that initial one. But if that opening one is the town level one, then obviously all the more concentrated ones actually do damage to Yuta. If you didn't just like face tank the first one, the anime will confirm that in a little bit. Then yeah, I can see it. Never mind. It works.
And Kashimo doles out damage to Hikari consistently within their battle, as well as surviving all of Hikari's attacks with pretty little injuries to speak of.
Barely any damage.
And to top it all off, I mean, he beat third form Panda, so he might actually be top one in the first.
I still despise Panda. That was never changing. Remember how I've mentioned many a time before, I can't hold hatred in my heart? That's not even in my heart. That's hatred in my soul. Let's see.
Of his discharge lightning surpasses that of his physical blows leaps and bounds as well.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to a degree that's easy or even possible to calculate, but even with Akari's curse energy reserves and physical body withstanding attacks from Kashimo, at every point of lightning making contact, Akari's durability was completely exceeded, and whatever part of his body was hit pretty much exploded on impact. And this is somewhat consistent with the bolt of lightning being the attack to push Sukuna to unveil his Heian era body in chapter 37. Even if you're relative in power to Kashimo up close, so long as he's able to charge and subsequently land his lightning against you, the fight is pretty much guaranteed to be over. Speed-wise, Kashimo is much more of a mixed bag.
Alright, let's see.
He has the ability to launch attacks that are as fast as lightning. As discussed before, when it comes to his own physical attack and reaction speed, things get a bit more tricky. His relativity to Hikari might imply that he's a lightning timer as well.
There it is. Okay. But he says might. So where's he? So that's the thing. Once again, once you remove that, where does he actually put Kashimo? That's the real question. Where does he actually put Kashimo? Let's see where he puts him. Because notably, it's lightning timer stuff that I would typically put Kashimo at. Even though I notably, I always, now that I think about it, I don't really do much JJK crossfires now I think about it. Where actually do I put Kashimo if I don't include lightning timing stuff? If I put him at Mach 3, I don't know. I think he's slower than Cursia. So I don't know. We'll see.
As the gambling addict seems capable of at least visually registering and reacting to bolts of lightning at close range and diffusing its curse energy outside of his body. If you take this to mean each character should be reacting and responding to each other at that speed, then Kashimo would scale to his own attacks, although I personally believe there are a few flaws in the logic that need to be accounted for. For starters, this discharge of energy is pretty consistently shown to punch above Kashimo's weight class. It's why it's such an effective ability in the first place, so having Kashimo be able to move at a similar speed somewhat contradicts its narrative and in-universe utilization. The second issue stems from the nature of Akari's reaction. Sure, he's able to snowball.
This is my biggest thing. And notably, this isn't even the one that I see. It's the other one. It's the one where it comes close to his face, or at least seemingly his face based on the angle that's drawn at, and then he moves and then tags his arm. Using this one for the lightning feat is interesting. I've never actually seen that. But even then, you could argue perception much higher than actual physical motion, especially since Akari doesn't actually dodge this one. But I'd still say Kashimo can scale to his level of to the speed of his attack, but not its power. And the reason I say that is look at someone like Brain? 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 Oh, look at someone like Ryu, for example, right? His physical attacks, mink, 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 are fast and strong, but they aren't as strong as his Granite Blast. That's an example of his AP being different from the application of his technique. But Yuta is able to react to the Granite Blast, at least palm them and catch them and like react to them. And then Ryu's still able to put pause on Yuta. So even though the attacks have different power levels, the speed is still correlated. And I think that's the case here, except it's a little bit different because it's a speed thing, right? Where Kashimo's attack speed is a lot higher, or no, the raw power of the attack is a lot higher, but the speed is similar enough. It explains why he can direct it, but notably, I think the biggest argument against Kashimo actually scaling to the lightning is only because Hakari's reactions are, one, dubious, this one and the other one that's typically used as the Hakari reacting feat, but also the idea that it's a can't miss attack. None of other Kashimo's attacks are described as this, and notably, it works fundamentally differently. He aims it as in he points it at Hakari, but at least the way it's described, it just goes to whatever point is on his body, right? So like that's not the same thing. So it is weird that he can seemingly aim it sometimes, and then other times it just pops out based on wherever it was hit before and where the charges are placed. It's kind of funky. Let's see.
Poured out the excess cursed energy before it blows it.
My attack speed analogy there was horrible. Let me think of another one. Because I'm trying to think of one where one scales to their attack speed but not their attack power. I think you know what, a good example. It's not in universe though. Okay, this is gonna be weird. A good example is Dragon Ball, right? Where characters clearly scale to their beams, as in they can see them, they can react to them, they can sometimes knock them away, but the beams are confirmed to be a lot stronger than the regular attacks, right? Like a Kamehameha, especially like a Super Kamehameha, does way more damage than a Goku Punch, but Goku can fight characters who can react to his Kamehamehas. So even though they have much higher power, yeah, that's a better analogy, because even though the Kamehameha and the Super Kamehameha have much higher power than Goku's regular AP, it's still comparable to his regular base attack speed, because characters he fights are able to react to his Kamehamehas. Same case here for Kashimo and his Lightning, where it has a much higher AP than his regular punches and kicks, but speed-wise, it's actually comparable to him. The only issue is, once again, though, is the idea that technically you could argue Akari never actually reacts, and the attack speed is meant to be its shining point, not actually even its AP, because it's described as a can't miss attack without a domain. So I see what Ron is going for here, but then I'm going to wonder where he's going to put Kashimo. That's my main question. Where are you going to put him if you're not going to put him here? Which I'm assuming is like Mach 3. Let's see.
Up. But that's not really indicative of the rate at which he's able to throw punches, you know? All it means is that his perception and manipulation of cursed energy can keep up with lightning up close. Not really that he's throwing punches or...
This is interesting, though. Just like with Zenitsu, he's pulling out feats that aren't typically used to talk about the character at actual speed feat. Like, that, like, he doesn't... He showed the panel earlier, though, talking about, like, how the bolts blow people up. That's the feat I always see calculated as, like, okay, look at these characters having lightning timing. But not the brain thing. Same thing with Zenitsu earlier. He doesn't even bring up the Kaigaku lightning stuff. He just says Kaigaku's weak, and then implies that because Kaigaku's weak, his lightning could get stronger, then it doesn't actually scale over lightning. So this is an interesting way to do it. I don't know, but this just comes from me, like, looking at it this way. You pull what feat you want to push in the area you want to push. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's what I do too. I get it. I get we push an agenda. Because the agenda is all that matters at the end of the day. So you came here for facts, logic, reasoning. It's all about agenda. I'm kidding. Ronan's cooking.
Weaving his head back and forth that quickly. So if you're uncomfortable with or straight up don't align with the leaps of logic made in order to get this higher tier scaling, Kashimo doesn't really move relatively to his lightning. This goes doubly true in his base form. More consistently, he'd probably exist in the vaguely faster than sound purgatory that most of the Jujutsu Kaisen cast.
Another feat I never see get brought up, though, and I don't think he's going to bring up here, because he's not brought up before. There's the Maki catching the bullet feat. Like, when Mai fires the revolver with the, like, last secret creation cursed energy bullet, Maki catches that. That feat is, like, multiple times faster than sound, just based on the motion. I've seen that calc. No one ever brings it up. They bring up the Mach 3 Saving for Night and lock it there. But that is a feat that, like, pre-awakened Maki performs. I'm almost tempted to, like, actually go and look that up to see if that feat is still there at all. You know, one thing I'm going to do. Let me go to Maki versus Battle Weight. I want to see if that feat is even still there. Because now I'm actually kind of intrigued. Maki... Let's see. Let me just go to her speed, because I think that's where the calc was linked. Multi-city block level, yeah, whatever. Yeah, alright. Alright, there it is. That Supersonic Plus. Let me see that. Subsonic combat reaction speeds can dodge, cut and dodge or bullets. Supersonic reactions that are so much rings. Okay, so I guess like maybe that calc was debunked, I'm guessing. I'm guessing that calc was debunked then, because I don't see it here. Not in her profile anymore. At least under the speed section, because it'll be combat reactions can cut and dodge over bullets. Oh no! All right, so it's way lower than I thought. All right, then I must be thinking of a different calc then. But even then, are these the rubber bullet model Maki subsonic when he catches a bullet? Let's see, subsonic. All right, nope, never mind. It's just subsonic. So yeah, never mind. I guess that's it. Where did I see that count then? Notably, they are using the manga here. They aren't using the anime. The anime, I think the anime feat is the one that I saw calced, but this is just the manga. So yeah, never mind. If without that feat, then yeah, I understand the Mach 3 stuff or the speed of sound stuff. Let's see.
Themselves in. Even in base, Kashimo should be physically relative with most of the heavy hitters based on his performance against Akari, and by the end of the story, they should all view piercing blood speed as child's play. Along with the numerous gunfire reactions we see throughout the manga, it's clear that they don't view sound attacks as the end-all, be-all. Calculations on where he and his contemporaries would be exactly...
That's another reason why I find, like, the mock stuff, like, funny and freaky. Because, like, I think even if you calc some of these feats, they can't, like, the way they react to them is just, like, after the fact, after the bullets are fired. Like, they have to be faster than sound. So I think saying they're subsonic just doesn't make sense, but there's about a way he says that. It's just, like, I don't know. It feels weird to me. It feels, like, I agree, JJK is actually pretty slow and pretty weak, but I don't think it's that slow. Well, let's see.
He varies, but anywhere from 1 to 10 times the speed of sound works as a solid low-end scale for Kashimo.
So that's not subsonic.
With Mythic Beast Amber, you could argue that he has maybe a blitz level difference in speed above his previous self, at least based on how he almost instantly overwhelms Sukuna physically when transforming. He's also stated in this form to surpass the limits of mankind, a sentiment that doesn't really go anywhere or...
It mainly doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't mean anything because of Maki and Toji, ironically enough. like, do they count as mankind? Because they have speed feats and reaction feats that are better than this Kashimo. Thanks to, like, Maki dodging full chance dismantles and point blank dismantles. Like, it's weird. I agree, it's weird. Especially considering Sukuna goes on to be another being that surpasses the limits of mankind and just bullies this Kashimo physically as well. So, like, I don't know, it's funky. We'll see.
Mean all that much comparatively when we see a member of the same species go blow for blow with him in battle. You could argue that this statement is mostly in reference to normal humans.
Sukuna's not normal.
Not Gojo or Sukuna. But even that doesn't do much to push him into a whole new tier of speed, because he was already pretty relative to the likes of Yuta, Akari, Yuji, and Maki in this.
That is a good way to get him above, though, right? Like, if you assume he's actually relative to these four, and then he gets an entire Perception Blitz tier above, that means he would Perception Blitz any of these guys here. Do I agree with that? No! But, like, if you want to go down that route, being in a Perception Blitz tier above all four of these characters, especially with their later feats, especially if you give him a Perception Blitz tier above Maki, which I don't think he is, that's pretty good. Pretty darn good. Let's see.
Speed department, even if you don't think he beats them, he's kind of in that general area. For what it's worth, he seems somewhat relative to Heianera Sukuna up close with his curse technique Unleash.
He's able to block some of Sukuna's attacks, and then he mainly loses because Sukuna has the extra limbs, right? But he does take damage from regular punches too, which isn't good for him.
Getting battered due to the difference in limbs.
Yep,
and if we take this to be true and scale him accordingly, he could get all the way up to Mach 60, riding off the coattails of Sukuna dodging piercing blood. Somewhat of a weaker argument though, because it's hard to pin down just how...
The best case you make for Kashimo, unironically in NBA, is that Sukuna is able to react to the lightning and then transform before the lightning reaches him. Well, to be fair, we don't even know what happens there. That in fact, let me see. Let me go back and find it. Where was I? 1241? All right, let's go back and find it. Where is it? The feat you really want to glaze is NBA. Let me see. I'm not going to look too far for it. But not this feat here, not this feat here. It's when he... Okay, I'm going to go back to 1241. But when he gets the bolt off, on Sukuna, as Meguna, is able to react and complete his transformation before the bolt actually reaches him. Or you think the bolt reaches Sukuna and then he just incarnates anyway. It's hard to tell because it's not a very clear showing of what happens. But that's like another, a character reacting to and then moving faster than lightning. This stuff right here is not really enough. It's not good enough. And he's not even bringing up the EM stuff. But no, we also think the EM stuff is like confirmed to be a mistranslation anyway. So like, And plus, there's aim dodging. So there's so much that goes against the light speed stuff for JJK that I don't really care. Let's see.
Seriously, Sukuna is taking this fight, and that's something you always have to consider when scaling.
But also, we know he's not taking Choso seriously. I'd say he takes Kashimo seriously more than he takes Choso. So he still should definitely scale to like the 60 times speed of sounds feet, if that's what that is. We'll see.
Another Jujutsu Kaisen character to him. Sukuna's power tends to fluctuate with his whims and excitement, so unless explicitly stated, like with Maki, or pretty obviously denoted through the narrative, like with Gojo, it's extremely hard to prove that anyone is Sukuna's physical equal, even if they don't perform that badly against him. Mythic Beast Amber doesn't just exist to give him a boost in power, though. Kashimo's curse technique grants him access to every phenomenon produced by electricity, and it's largely used to create resonant sound waves and irradiating electromagnetic blasts, which should be as fast as light itself.
So we are bringing that up. I guess we're just talking about like attack speed though, and Kashimo shouldn't actually scale to that attack speed. All right.
Bringing that up, I'm sure I've opened the light speed JJK can of worms, but even if you're under the impression that Sukuna is fast enough to deal with attacks on that level, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to prove.
This is the main one right here, but it's hard. But like I bet he's about to say, it's hard to prove Kashimo actually scales to the speed of his EM waves, if you think that's an EM wave. But it is actually this feat where like Sukuna technically blitzes it because he speaks faster than the wave can reach him. But let's see.
That Kashimo's physical abilities would scale as well. Sukuna's attacks and cursed energy are able to overwhelm him even in his strongest form. So irrespective of Sukuna's relation to light, Kashimo probably shouldn't be there. Much like Zenitsu, Kashimo's arsenal is rather limited and straightforward. And in scaling his physicals, I've touched on just about everything in his kit. Lightning manipulation to a very high degree, and potentially inhuman levels of speed paired with sonic and light blasts. In many ways, these two characters have shown themselves to be somewhat unorthodox or strange in how they're scaled or what skills they possess in comparison to my other Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen matchups. Zenitsu, while quick on the draw, lacks the definitive feats of strength that many of his comrades do in the very same manga, and Kashimo comparatively possesses the statistical highs of most Jujutsu Kaisen characters, but lacks what is maybe the most useful ability unique to the verse, being
domain expansion.
As keen listeners may have.
But he does have a sure hit without a domain. That's gonna be the key to victory here. I would actually be shocked if Ronin finds a way to give this to Zenitsu at all. Mainly because of how low he scales in this AP, and he gave Kashimo town level. That he didn't bring up the Drogo thing at all, but it's fine. But he gave Kashimo town level. Zenitsu's barely city block according to him, man. Like I don't like even with the speed advantage. With the way that Kashimo's sure hit without a domain expansion works, I don't know a way you could give this to Zenitsu. That's why I always say, as important as speed is, it's not everything. You do need at least some AP. You need a lick of AP. That's why I think Yuji versus Tanjiro can actually go in Tanjiro's favor if you give him the speed advantage, because he has just enough AP to tickle Yuji's toes enough, and then wear him down eventually. And the stamina to go with that. In this case, Zenitsu doesn't have the AP. He has a speed advantage, but it's not enough that I'm convinced he could actually like gut Kashimo before the bolt comes out. Zenitsu's landing maybe 5 or 6 hits. He's doing minimal damage, and then the bolt comes out and he dies, just like Panda. I said Panda didn't die. But
picked up. Kashimo isn't anywhere near as fast as Zenitsu when taking a more measured and conservative approach to viewing his speed scaling, being anywhere from 3 to 200 times slower than Zenitsu, in fact. Typically, a Jujutsu Kaisen character in one of these videos would have a domain expansion to negate the speed difference, or even a technique like Idle Transfiguration or Infinity to sidestep the need for relative speed altogether. But Kashimo has nothing of the sort. In fact,
he does have a sure hit though.
Doesn't even demonstrate the capacity to heal himself with reverse curse technique, meaning any lethal damage taken over the course of the fight will prove to be enough to end it. All of these factors combined may lead you to believe that Zenitsu has this fight in the bag, but our resident sleepyhead has some shortcomings of his own, namely being his attack potency.
Yeah.
Even being generous, Zenitsu's sword strikes should not have much of an effect on Kashimo, if any at all. In fact, the gap between their strength and durability is as insurmountable as the difference in speed. If Kashimo were to land any significant strike, the fight would be over in that very moment. This stalemate of attack potency and speed begs the question of who wins despite it all. And
it's Kashimo because of the sure hit. If he doesn't, it has to be Kashimo because of the sure hit. Let's see.
To that question, I say it depends. Assuming we take both fighters in their most narratively consistent presentation, Kashimo would rather die than use his technique on anyone not named Sukuna, which means he's limited to his base form. His attacks would be avoided pretty easily by Zenitsu, but Zenitsu's sword strikes would be pretty much, like, feathers to Kashimo's body, if
Yeah.
we're being completely honest. As far as I'm concerned, what breaks the deadlock between these
The sure
two
hit?
are Kashimo's lightning bolts and
There it
Curse
is.
energy trait. Well, it's typically shown that the Curse energy trait one is born with is produced or demonstrated when attacking. We see on 2 separate occasions
Yeah, there it
Kashimo's
is.
lightning can be discharged even if he's the one getting attacked. In chapter 186, the beginning of
What did I say? I knew it. I knew. Man, I'm telling you, me and Ronin, we kind of on the same wavelength. Oh, there it is, though. Yep. That's the thing. It's why Kashimo, I think, is better than most characters. And I think he does have chances against more. Because he's almost in the same case where he's like a character you lose for winning against. It's like, it's almost as bad as King Gambit in Pokemon. In fact, I'd say it's kind of the same thing, but obviously it's just all Kashimo, not multiple teams. But like, the thing that sucks about like, or not sucks, but it's actually really, really good about like King Gambit with Dark Overlord or whatever the ability's called, and Houndstone and what's his Annihilate. The thing that sucks against them is that you lose for playing the game. Why is Rage Fist so good? It got Annihilate banned to Ubers because every time you hit the thing, his attack potency goes up from 50 to 100 to 150 to, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. It's impossible to stop, especially because he's bulky enough. Why is Houndstone suck? You can literally beat your opponent's entire team, but unless you have a Ghost immune and heaven forbid a Sandstorm is up, suddenly Houndstone comes out with a base 300 power stab move. It tears Ghost. That's a 1.5 multiplier on top of no, it's literally a 2 times multiplier. It's basically adaptability. You Terra Ghost, Choice Band, Sand Rush, that just boom the entire team because they're getting hit by base 600 power on top of Houndstone's it's like a 92 or like 112 attack. But if that's banded, that's like up to 160, 170. And then he's just bowling through your entire team. You lost because you played the game properly. You progressed the game properly. Same case for King Gambit. You could wipe an entire King Gambit's team. Guess what? All of its attacks are now boosted to infinity. And it's going to one-shot you. Over and over and over again. Heaven forbid you don't have a Dark Resist. Like, obviously, even like an Iron Valiant, right? Notably why I run Iron Valiant on so many of my Pokemon teams is because King Gambit is very, very scary and annoying. Because Iron Valiant quad resist Sucker Punch, meaning it has to sit there, and whether it goes Terra Ghost or Terra Dark, or sometimes even Fire, a CC will immediately knock it if it's not Terra Ghost, and then I run knockoff on my King Gambits, just to make sure, or on my Iron Valiant, just to knock it down, and then at least do a good chunk of damage, and then like Spirit Break it, or whatever is left after, if it Terra Ghosted or something like that. But that's the thing. In those cases in Pokemon, you win for losing. Against Kashimo, you win for losing. You lose for winning. No, that's it. You don't win for losing. You win for losing if you're the King Gambit player or you're Kashimo, and you lose for winning in the case of anyone who's fighting Kashimo, who has to make physical contact. Of course, against characters like Sukuna, against characters like Gojo, against any character with like decent range, it doesn't matter because their attacks won't place a charge on anything. A blue is gone the second after you use it. A Dismantle's gone the second after it's used. A character like Yuta could fire Cursed Energy. That's not going to link back to him because it's released Cursed Energy. A character like Ryu is the same case. But for any character who relies on physicals, they lose against Kashimo because literally just hitting him applies charges. That sucks. And a lot of characters in JJK don't have range. Even a character like Earl would hypothetically lose because every single hit she lands on Kashimo, a charge is being placed. Unless you argue the space between them is what's getting tagged, then she wouldn't lose. But
Kashimo and Hikari's bout, we see that Hikari is electrified, though only slightly because of his reserves. It's important to make note of this because up to this point, Kashimo hasn't actually hit Hikari yet.
Yep.
He's only taken damage, yet he's still surprised by the fact Hikari isn't more negatively impacted by his trade. The conclusion that we can draw based off this fact is that Kashimo should be able to build up a charge whether or not he's the one attacking or being attacked. Chapter 188 substantiates this.
Yep.
After another failed attempt to kill Hikari with his lightning, Kashimo gets pelted by attacks from Hikari who isn't expecting him to be able to launch another bolt. And if you go from the sequence page by page, we see that Kashimo does not land another attack until the second lightning bolt of the chapter strikes Hikari in the torso, rather definitively proving that even sustaining damage through physical contact would allow Kashimo to build a charge.
though in this case, this one's different because he charges and it's even mentioned here, Kashimo's lightning strike can pull back charge accumulated in the Nioi staff. That was like, notably, that actually isn't a bolt coming from Hikari. The charge was placed in the Nioi staff, and then the charges resonate through Kashimo. And like, no, you can even see the bolt, unlike previously, doesn't stop on Hikari. It literally comes from the staff all the way back and then through Hikari to Kashimo. That's where the linkage is happening here. So this isn't actually a case of defensive application. The cases are against Panda and earlier against Hikari. We'll see.
This fact is absolutely critical to this battle, because it means that Zenitsu's inability to kill Kashimo in one attack, or even put his life in danger with his slashes, would result in Kashimo charging up an adequate amount of power to discharge a bolt that would one-shot Zenitsu.
Yep.
The Mach 300 speed of lightning, eclipsing his calculable speed in the manga.
Is lightning only Mach 300? Hold on. How many times faster than sound is lightning? Hold on. Yeah, okay. So that wasn't massive level. Lightning travels about 227 million miles per hour, which is about 3,700 times the speed of sound. I was about to say I don't think lightning is only 30 times. I don't know where he's got that from, but still, that's fine.
Even if you argue that Zenitsu's Godspeed is essentially get out of jail free card, he can only do that a few times and would continue to exhaust himself in the process until Kashimo secures the victory, or Kashimo could do the same maneuver that he did against Akari, setting up his staff in between himself and Zenitsu so that the lightning bolt happens from behind, off guarding him, despite the speed difference. This outcome only becomes more cemented the more grace you give Kashimo, or if you allow him to use Mythic Beast Amber. In the event that Kashimo is truly a lightning timer, then that means he's capable of just outspeeding and
bullying Zenitsu
in close quarters combat. With or without this grace, though, Zenitsu also loses to Mythic Beast Amber, just on the basis of the light beam alone. Even the most generous interpretation imaginable for Zenitsu doesn't allow him to react to an attack like this, and he most certainly doesn't have the durability to outright tank it. I won't lie to you, when making this video, I expected Zenitsu's speed to be an equalizing factor that would make this fight become one.
Not with that low AP.
Which, to be completely honest, Zenitsu would probably win due to the Hashira training showings and generally Demon Slayer characters having a lot of good stamina feats. But when I discovered that Kashimo's Curse Energy trait worked both offensively and defensively, it became clear that his victory would be assured no matter what. But I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that lightning beats out thunder.
Oh, that's a bar.
Subscribe and check out my previous Jujutsu Kaisen versus Demon.
All right. So I've reacted to this one. These three are on the docket next. I'll see if maybe I record them today. Maybe I don't. But regardless, I got 2 videos recorded. So I got one ready for tomorrow and I got one ready for next week. So I'm probably gonna sit down and edit those now, and I may come back and react to one of these three. Which one it shall be up to me. The only reason I may react to this one first is because it's the shortest. You may be like, Pencil Man, it's only shorter by 1 minute. 1 minute is a lot for me if you couldn't tell. But I'll let the video play out after this. This is going to be the end of the video. A worthy video. It went pretty much exactly how I expected. Ultimately, you can give Zenitsu the speed advantage all you want. He loses to the bolt. I'll admit, unironically, that's how it works for a lot of Demon Slayer characters, but especially for Zenitsu, who just has way too low AP, like, yeah, that really is rough. It do be awful for your boy. But with that being the case, W video, fantastic video. Check out Broken Around in the description down below. If you made all the way to the end of this video, please leave Lightning Beats Thunder. That was a bar. That was a bar he just dropped. Leave Lightning Beats Thunder in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that all the kids will see out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, even have a page down below where you support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. So now become a member over on the main channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include literally every single video I ever record. Like the second I'm done with it, it goes up. Like that's kind of how it is. In fact, funnily enough, at the time of recording, I haven't recorded a proper video for the main channel in a little bit because I'm recording on Friday. On a Friday, the latest video I recorded is coming out on Sunday. Just like those people have had that video all the way since back of Tuesday of this week because that's how early you get some videos. And once again, since this is a channel that only drops weekly, I do plan to still try and get up a bulk. I was able to do that last recording session. I may not be able to do it this recording session, but still, time of recording, you won't be seeing this video until like a week at earliest. And that's if I upload this video immediately next, a week after it's recorded. So become a patron and remember, you can get all this stuff early. But with that being the case, I want to thank you so much for watching. Once again, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Reaction, cutting off.